Good morning, everybody. It is a morning, of course, here in Kansas City for me. It's a little bit of a weird morning because we've got some storms, some rain, and things like that. So it's a little darker outside than it often is, especially here in the summers. Usually it's very bright at like 5:30 or 6 o'clock in the morning. So even on Saturdays, I get woken up pretty early just because of that. But today, I just kind of slept in a little bit because it was nice and dark outside for the most part. But it kind of makes it a little bit brighter in here when it's dark outside because it's the lights and everything, all that fun stuff. So I'm trying to wake up and see things as much as I can this morning. But that's where the coffee comes in. And Mel, just for you, it's freshly brewed, no microwave. So uh, here we go. All right. As always, welcome to the live stream here on Saturday morning. Typically here most Saturdays. Obviously, there's a few now and then we're not able to do it, but right now we're going through the DeepPockets project as we are doing the live stream. Don't know when that will actually end and when we'll move to something else, but we got plenty of work to do on that project, so it's going to be a while as we go. So again, welcome. If you are in the chat, if you're watching this live, first of all, jump in the chat so you can participate in the process here. You can ask questions and just generally chat with other people who are watching. It's always a good time. Chat with me as well. And if you are trying to get in contact with me via the chat, please do at DevMentorDave. Usually it'll come up with like a tag. I think it's red if I remember correctly. At least it is for me when I look at it. And that kind of catches my attention, or put some question marks in front of your question, and that'll just make it easier for me to see that in the midst of other chat that might be going on as we go through here. Second, if you would, if you find this helpful and interesting, if you would hit the like button, and if you would share it with other people, that'd be awesome. The goal of this channel is to reach out to junior developers and to give them not necessarily more coding and tutorial things, although today we'll be looking at some coding stuff, and we do that once in a while. The goal really is to help you see what it's like and learn what it's like and learn the things that you need to learn and the ways that you need to grow to go from basically learning code to having a successful career as a developer. And I know right now, especially, there's a lot of anxiety going on. The market's not great for junior developers, and so I want to try to reach as many of you as possible to help encourage you, to help provide some insight, to provide some mentoring as much as I can through a screen, through a video, or a live stream. And so I want to try to reach as many as I possibly can to help you, because I know there's a lot of people out there, junior developers, who've maybe been through a boot camp or some sort of training, and they're trying to just kind of floundering a little bit, and they need some direction, some help, and some encouragement. So if you know anybody like that, feel free to share this, not just this live stream, but the channel and other videos and things like that as we go along with them, and hopefully that'll be a help as well. So don't forget to like the video. Don't forget to subscribe if you're not subscribed, and you find this content helpful. Hit the subscribe button. That'll give you notifications for when we're going to go live, when I post in the community thing, when someday I start posting videos again, when I'm not as busy. And so hopefully that'll happen sooner rather than later. It's my goal. We'll see. We'll see how that works out. But anyway, so that is everything with the channel. One more programming note, and this is completely personally self-serving, and that is tomorrow is my birthday. So that's it. I'm turning 43. I'm an old guy. So, there's that. But, doesn't really change anything. I just wanted to tell people. It kind of makes my wife frustrated, because I'm not a big fan of big parties and things like that, which 43 is not really that big of a deal. It's not really a milestone or anything like that. Oh, sweet. Happy birthday, CW. That's awesome. Is it unlucky to congratulate in advance? No, I don't think so. I mean, unless you're going to congratulate me in the Discord channel or something like that, that's fine. But yeah, nobody necessarily needed to know that, but that's me. I don't usually like a lot of hoopla about it, but I thought it might be fun to share here on the live stream. So no, you can congratulate both of us, Mel, CW and me. We're both born on June 30th. See, I knew we had a connection. There we go. But I'm not baking a cake today for my birthday. All right, cool. All right, so project update. Before we dive into the topic of this morning, I want to just kind of update everybody on where we're at with the project and kind of give you some hope as we move forward. As you know, we have been kind of slogging through a lot of stuff early on, talking about process and talking about how we're going to do things. Just recently got into the code the last month or so, as we're starting to talk through how do we get this project set up? How do we get it ready for us to really start diving in and writing code? And so we've been doing a lot of back-end work, and we've been talking about database migrations and seeders and models. Excuse me. And we're going to take that kind of to the next step today and really talk about CRUD. And if you don't know what CRUD is, it's an acronym, CRUD. It stands for Create, Read, Update, and Delete. And so what we're going to do today is we're going to look at how do we build that out, or how do we at least kind of start the basics of building that out in Laravel. And then obviously you're going to have to do that on your own in a ticket. But then we'll also kind of talk through where we're at as far as tickets. But really after this point, once we get into the front end, we got probably next week will be kind of the flip side of this in starting to build out some of the front end stuff. At that point, we'll be looking at React. Maybe not next week, we'll just see, but it'll definitely be within the next couple weeks. And so at that point, we'll really start getting to a place where we're going to be able to start giving individuals their own tickets and really start working this as a team, just like we the goal of the project is. Because the goal of the project is not just for me to write something, right? It's for you guys to be a part of this and to learn what it looks like and what it feels like to be a part of a team and to work within a team and to have people reviewing your code and things like that. So we're going to be having individual tickets. So if you want to participate in individual tickets, if you want tickets specifically assigned to you for this project, I want you to leave me a message in the Dev Mentor Dave Discord server on the DeepPockets. I think it's DeepPockets overview. Hang on one second. DeepPockets code channel. That's probably where we should put it. I'll put a listing in there asking for those who want to participate in that. I just saw your note, Mel. I need hope right now. I broke my environment. Only got it working again today. Now the seeders are confusing me. We'll go back and watch the one from a couple Wednesdays ago, and hopefully that'll help. And if it doesn't, let us know in the Discord channel. We'll help you out. What was I saying? Oh, so in the Discord channel, I'll leave a post and you can respond to that if you want to participate in specific tickets. Now, again, you can do this stuff on your own. You don't have to push PRs. You can just use this as a learning opportunity if you want. So you don't have to do that. You can just follow along. But if you're interested in participating, building the project with us, and you want to get your own tickets and get your own PR reviews and things like that, let me know and we'll get that set up for you. Or I'll get that post in. You can let me know, and then I'll make sure that I assign you tickets as we get to that point. One other note is once we get to that point, obviously I will do PR reviews, some of them live and things like that, but I want you guys to participate in reviewing each other's code, just to kind of get used to doing that process, because even as junior developers, a lot of times companies will expect you to participate in that process. Sometimes it's just like a lead or something like that, but it's good practice for you to get used to reviewing other people's code, because it helps you learn to read other people's code and understand how other people are writing code. and maybe even learn some things as you go along, or help somebody else as you learn something as you go along, reading and reviewing their PR. So that's the goal of the project. We want to make it feel like a real dev team as much as we possibly can. So that's kind of where we're at. That's where we're going here. Just in probably a couple weeks, we'll start giving out those individual tickets, especially as we start on the front end here as well. All right. Yeah, that's true, Mel. A lot of times it's just a matter of understanding concepts. And in my opinion, concepts generally I understand them more the more I use them. And that's kind of like everything with software development and with coding. It really solidifies with use. And I would just encourage you seek to understand concepts more than memorize code. Especially with good frameworks like Laravel, where they have a great documentation. It's not nearly as necessary to remember exactly how to do things. It's more necessary to remember what I want to do and how I go about doing that, what I need to do that, and then I can go find the documentation. You guys saw me do that a couple live streams ago, where I just had to go look up the documentation because I didn't remember what the issue was, or how to fix or how to write something correctly. So don't be afraid of that. That's what documentation is there for. If you can memorize it, great. It just makes you type faster and get things done faster. But don't stress so much about that part. But yeah, seek to understand the why and not necessarily the individual pieces of code. So okay, let's see here. I think there's something else. Dev Venture Day, I think we need to merge previous tickets before we can proceed with the next ones. We do need to merge. I'm going to check and make sure. I think one of them got updated. I'm not sure all of them got updated. And honestly, those are community tickets, so we'll only probably merge one in, and then I'll just, remove the others or deny the others. But one thing I did notice is we don't have any Cedar ticket PRs yet, so you still need to work on those as well. So we'll see how that goes. Hopefully some of you have some opportunity. I know Ray messaged me yesterday, I think it was, and just said he wasn't going to be here today and hasn't had time to work on it either. So life is busy. Please do not feel bad if you're getting behind or if you need to catch up on some things. Life is busy, and I know that personally. My life is really busy right now. That's why there hasn't been any videos posted recently. So don't feel bad if that is happening to you. Just try to catch up when you can, or follow along just watching the videos and watching the live streams, and even just hearing stuff and seeing stuff will be helpful to you along the way. So, but yeah, I will get that cleaned up this week. Meaning just to make sure, or who is it? CW. I'll get that cleaned up this week, just so we've got something clean to work with moving forward. Okay. CW, do we create a PR for ticket number 2 on top of ticket number 1? I would say for ticket number 2, you do need both. That's fine for now. We'll do better at merging moving forward. So if you want to do that, that's fine. Or if you just want to... so another thing that you can do, this is getting a little complicated in Git here, but you can create a new branch off of main, and then you can merge in your other branch so that your other branch is in your new branch, but you're not branching off of it, if that makes sense. So create a PR off of develop or off of main, and then merge in your other PR. So that way you have your other code, but it's kind of like a parent. It's just got it's extra stuff that's going to be in main eventually. So that's one way to do it. But I will update develop so we can, or main, sorry. Sometimes I use develop a lot as the actual development branch. So I keep forgetting that we're on main. But I'll update main so that it has somebody's PR in there, and we can move forward from that. Yep, and that's perfectly fine too, Mel. You can just branch off your first PR branch. You can absolutely do that. That's not a problem. Just make sure that you merge in main once we get it updated, and I'll let everybody know once that's been updated in the Discord channel, so that you know to pull that to merge main into your current branch. All right. And if you're not familiar with Git flow and the words that I'm saying now about merging branches and things like that, there's part of your homework for the week. Go figure out what I'm talking about. There's lots and lots of videos on YouTube on Git. I'm not going to probably create any. Again, this is not, my goal is not to be a tutorial place, but I'll help you where I can. Okay, so let's talk CRUD. We're going to get into some code here in just a minute, but I want to talk about the flow of the application. So when you go to your localhost or wherever you're going to on your website, right? Excuse me. The website's making requests, right? So the web server, the browser client is making requests to the web server. Obviously, there's more going on in that process, but for simplicity's sake, it's making a call to the web server, and then the web server is transferring that call to our routes file. So let me pull up our transition. That's what the button says. Let me pull up my screen here. I need some more coffee. Hang on. Okay, so if you look over here, we have a directory called routes, right? So what happens is our website is going to basically hit the routes folder, and it's generally going to be hitting this web route. So the web route is going to be for all of our web pages, right? So the web route is going to take that. In fact, we can go here and show you. And we looked at this very briefly back when we first installed the application, but just again for the workflow, so you can understand how this works. So the call comes into the router, or to the web router, and that gets sent to either a view. We're just returning a view here, or usually we want to send it to a controller. So you've got the router going to a controller, and the controller then looks at the information that's getting passed in, if there is any, such as information in the path, or information that's being sent via like a post or something like that, or a put. Actually, these are all going to be gets because they're web routes. But anyway, the controller is going to look at that, and then that controller is going to actually do things. And that controller oftentimes will interact with our model, which, if you remember from last time, which about a week and a half ago, the model is what actually interacts with the database. So the model works with the database to pull the information out about a specific entity or about a specific resource. So for example, we have different resources or entities in our application. We have accounts, we have budgets, we have budget line items, we have budget categories, we have all kinds of different entities or resources that we have created in our application. Now, what I have locally doesn't have that, again, because this is just the stuff that I've done personally here on the live streams. But one of the things that you did early on is build those resources with the migrations. And then last time we talked about building models and then seeders. Models match the resources, and they help us interact with the database. All right, so the flow is web browser to the server, which hits the routes, which then hits the controllers, which then uses models. All right, so that's kind of the flow. And then, of course, it sends the information back up through that process flow. But in order to build that out, and it's the same way, and that's for a web route, right? Well, the same thing kind of happens when you're doing API routes. So if you'll notice here, we look back at our screen, we've got web and we've got API. Don't worry about these two right now. That's some more advanced stuff we're probably not going to be using in this project, but it's kind of boilerplate. So we have web routes, and then we have API routes. And so this is where we're going to spend some of our time today, building out our API routes, because the web route's going to be more front end stuff, but the front end is going to need to make API calls to the back end to get information. And that's where most of our CRUD is going to be built out, right? So it's going to be built out in the routes, controllers, and then interact with the models. And so we'll take a look here. Also, if you'll notice, this is built up. The API route automatically has things set up for you to use authorization. Sorry, my brain's going away. We're not dealing with users and authorization in this specific application, at least at this time. So we won't need to put things inside this specific function. But just so you know, that is one of the ways that you can protect those API routes to make sure somebody's actually logged in to access those. So there's lots of stuff with that, which we're probably not going to get into in this application. We're trying to keep things as simple as possible as we build this out. But API routes are going to be something that we use a lot in the application, as we're obviously wanting to be able to make AJAX calls, making calls to the backend without reloading the page. It's one of the cool things about, Angular and React and Vue and things like that. So we're definitely going to be in the API routes a lot here today and over the next few tickets. But then we'll be getting into web routes eventually as we start building the front end specifically. Okay, so let's dive in. Now, one thing we have to remember here is, as we're building this out, obviously we've got the flow going from the website to the routes to the controllers to the models. Well, in order to get that flow, you have to kind of build it backwards, right? Because you can't have a route that is looking for a controller that doesn't exist yet, and a controller that's trying to get a hold of a model that doesn't exist yet, right? So you have dependencies there in that process. So we're actually going to start with the models, and then we're going to do the controllers, and then we're going to do the API routes. And I'm going to do this for accounts, because it's very small, so there's not a lot of work that has to be done, and then B, because you guys are going to do the rest of them as part of the community tickets. So I want to just kind of walk through the flow for you and the process, and show you some things here along the way, and then we'll give it over to you guys. So I'm using the easiest, simplest one to do that with. And in fact, let me just pull up the diagram so you can see it. Okay. So if you remember, accounts only has 2 fields, and an ID and a name. So I'm going the easy route this morning. So make it easy for myself, not so much for you. There you go. That's what a good lead does. It makes it harder on you. Not necessarily, but this is a learning process, so you have to take some time to learn stuff. All right, cool. Again, I will keep an eye on the chat if you guys have anything that you want to say. Oh, hey O'Neill. Sorry I missed you earlier. Welcome. Good to see you again. Let's see. Yeah, and Ali, good to see you too. Let's see. Demonstrator Dave, do we not need to create models for seating? You do need to create a model for seating. So you'll probably already have models in here for this if you're branching off of your previous PR. So you already have the models in here, but I don't in mind, so I'm going to create them as I go. Just, it might hopefully be a good, helpful reminder for you along the way as well. Yes, Ali, I will take a look at your PR. I think I might have already, unless you've updated it. So I think I've looked at everybody's that's in there in given feedback, but if not, I will double check it. Okay, so I'm going to jump over to my terminal here, because I want to show you something. If you remember, a couple weeks ago, we looked at these commands that help us build boilerplate really quickly. One of the things I love about Laravel is the ability to run these commands and build some of these files out and structures out really quickly without having to think about it. So I just wanted to show this to you again. So remember, I'm in Sail, but artisan is the main command that we're going to use, and then the or the main, I don't know what you call that off the top of my head. The command is make, right? And I'm just going to do help, and you can see all the different commands that are available with this make command, all the different options that are available with this make command. And it tells you all the things that you can create. So again, a lot of this stuff we won't necessarily use, but controllers we absolutely will. We looked at factories last time, migrations, models. I think that's seeders. That's the other thing. So, and there's lots of other things that you can use, and it builds out that boilerplate file system for you. So again, I just wanted to show you all those options there and show you how to see them, because I don't think they're documented like all in one place in the Laravel documentation. They're just kind of sprinkled throughout the different entities, the different resource types as you go, if I remember correctly. So we're going to use several different of those commands. Now, if you remember, the make command, the make model command gives you lots of options. In fact, let me show you here. Sail artisan make model help. Okay, so there's lots of different hang on. Does it not give me? That's annoying. Hang on one second. Oh, helps if you type the right commands. Artisan. What is going on here? Welcome to the live stream, folks. Let's see what's going on. Okay, sail artisan make model. There we go. I wasn't typing something correctly. Okay. And my brain was not finding it. Okay. So these are all the options that are available. Notice again, we can make other boilerplates along with our model. We did that a little bit last time. If you do --all or -a, it'll generate a migration, a seeder, a factory, a policy, a resource controller, and a former class. I mean, it does. You can do a lot of stuff, which really most of the time you're going to need most of these things. So I would generally recommend doing that, especially if you're building your own project, just because you're going to need most of that stuff anyways. But you can call them out specifically here. So, but I'm going to do them individually because I want to walk through this stuff together here. So, okay, let's do this. Clear it out. Okay, so we're going to do sail artisan, if I can still type this correctly, make a model, and we're going to give it a name. And remember, I think I did this wrong before, but your model should be singular generally. So we're going to make this account, if I can type. See, now you guys know how bad of a typer and speller I am, or typist and speller. All right, so sail artisan make model account, and that's going to make an account model. All right, so let's go to enter. All right, so that model was created successfully. We find that in apps, or app, and then models. And so now we have the account.php model. Now, if you remember, we were using Tinker, which is a tool that lets us write some code and be able to interact with models and things like that without actually writing the code. It lets us run it without actually writing it into files. So we won't do that again today, but we've got a model here for accounts. And let's look what we did last time. So if you remember, we had all these different things. We had a specific table, budget categories, guarded, nothing. So let's just for fun, let's do this. We don't have timestamps on this, I don't think. Let's check our migration. Well, we don't have a migration for it. Ho, ho, ho. All right. We need a migration. Hang on. See, this is what happens when you don't build things ahead of time. So artisan make migration, and we'll call this count. Is that what I want? I think that's what I want. Okay, so we've got a migration here. Figures. What did we build out before? Budget categories. Let's use budget categories. This is what happens when you don't research before you jump on and just make a plan. Okay, so we're going to switch over to budget categories. So goodbye account. We've got budget categories. We have budget category seeder. We'll come back to you. Don't save. Okay. We're going to build a model for budget categories. Good times. All right. Sale, artisan, make, and let's take a look at this here 1 second. Let's look at budget category. So that is singular, which is good. It's connected to the right table. All of that stuff's set up, and we tested that last time. All right. So we'll do budget category. We've already got the model, so we don't have to make the model. So we do need to make the controller. All right, so for CRUD, we're going to make what's called a resource controller. All right. Now, generally, if you look here, we've got app, HTTP, controllers. That's where our controllers are going to be. Generally, what I like to do is have a directory inside the controllers that is an API. I like to keep my API controllers separate from my web controllers. So I will generally create a directory that's for APIs. I think I can do that from the command itself. So we're going to try it here and just see. So I'm going to do make controller. We're going to name the controller, which would be, we're going to, even though it's going to be in the API directory, we're going to still add API to the name, just so when we're looking at the file, we know what it is. So this is going to be the budget category API controller. All right, so we're making a controller, budget category API controller, but I want to put it in the directory, so I believe I can do this. I can do API / we'll find out. And then the last piece of this is, when I build this controller, it's going to assume that it's a web controller. So I want it to actually be a resource controller, which a resource controller should give us all the kind of boilerplate for building out the CRUD. Again, this just makes it easier for us to build this stuff without having to think about all the different things that are needed. So Laravel is an awesome framework. It gives us these great things. So I can do -- resource, and that flag will tell it, hey, I'm building a resource controller, which is a controller that's assuming it's going to be kind of a CRUD controller. At least that's going to be the basis of it. That's going to be our API backend. So that way our next controller that we build for budget categories is going to be a web-based one, if we even need a web-based one. We might do everything through the API. All right, so we've got API, budget category, API controller, and then we're telling it that it's a resource controller. Let's see what happens. All right, so it worked. We've got our API directory inside of our controllers directory, and inside that we have our budget category API controller. All right, so let's take a look at this. Now, you'll see we've got multiple models here, or multiple methods here, And these are all based off of your basic CRUD for an application. So if we're interacting with this resource, if we're interacting with this entity, then we want to have the ability to get the list, right? So displaying a list of the resource. So creating is create, and then so this would be create, and then read, and then actually store. We wouldn't need this one. I don't know why it puts this one in here. Store is actually what we're looking for. So we're going to store. So this is really creating, reading. We don't need this one. This one would go in a more of a web related controller. Now you can use this obviously for all of them if you want to. I just like to keep them separate. I like to keep my CRUD, my API stuff separate from my web, but they're putting it all in the same one. All right. So edit again is for a form. So we would just use update and then destroy. So I'm going to get rid of these things that are part of the boilerplate that we don't need for the CRUD. And again, you can leave them in there and just use one controller if you want to. Totally up to you. I don't think there's a right or a wrong to that. But typically index we'll use for returning a list. So that's the read. Storing would be creating, update, and then destroy is delete. All right. So those are kind of the 4 CRUD methods that we want to interact with. Let's see. So that's the basic boilerplate. And again, depending on how you want to do it, you can, use the same file or you can split it up. All right, so we've got these different methods here, and we'll fill this out here in a minute. But next I want to create a route. All right, so the route is going to get information. All right, and I don't have Postman set up this morning. We'll check that out next week. But we'll just go through the building of it for now. All right. So index is going to be a list and then store. Now, one of the things that we want to do is we're going to need to pull in our model. So we're going to use app models budget category. All right, and we'll save that. So that way we'll be able to use that model to interact with our database and get the things that we want to get. So for example, we could do return budget category all. All right, so budget category, we're just going to return everything in the list. Now, this may not be exactly what you want to do in the future. You might want to paginate things and stuff like that. But again, we're just kind of talking through some of the basics here of how we want to do that. All right, so budget category, all. All right, we're just going to send back all the budget categories that we can find. Okay, so now let's take a look at our route. Let's get a route here. So we're going to do sale artisan make route. And we're going to call the, or no, sorry. We already have a route file. I'm not thinking. All right, let's go to our routes here and API. And again, we don't need the middleware, so we're just going to go down here underneath it and type in our basic route. Now, there's lots of ways that you can set up your routes. Routes can be grouped together. Generally, I like to group my routes together based on the resource or based on the controller. You can specify the paths and things like that. We're not going to get into all that today. I'm just going to kind of show you the way that I typically do it for most of my routes. And then you can take a look at the documentation, see what other things you like. This is the way that I would prefer to do it in our application. I think it makes the most sense. Most of the time you're going to be making API calls for a specific resource or entity. So I think grouping them by that resource, by the controllers that are part of that resource, I think that makes the most sense most of the time. So we're going to do route. Oop, here we go. Route. controller. And then in here, we're going to do our controller name, which would be budget category. And then we'll do category controller. I think that's right. And then class. All right, so we're going to pass in the budget category class. I'm just going to import that here, if it will do it. Of course, it can't find it. Okay, so use. Hang on. Let's check our budget category. Here's our namespace and budget. Oh, we named it wrong. That's why. Let's go back over here. All right, now let's try to import the class. It still doesn't like it. Okay. One more time. There we go. Okay. Helps if you don't have errors. Okay. So we've imported that API controller, that budget category API controller. So now we're passing that controller into the group here. All right, so we're creating a group of routes. All right, and if you've done this in something like Next, or if you've done this in, oh, good grief, go away. If you've done this in, why is this erroring? Well, just ignore it. There we go. Okay. So if you've done this in Next or something like that, you've probably grouped routes before. That's generally a good way of handling it. Come on. And keeping things organized in a way that you can understand it and read it and find things that you're looking for. Sometimes it's not helpful. You just need individual routes, but most of the time, grouping your routes is extremely helpful. All right, so we're going to do function. All right, so we're going to pass the category controller into our function here. And then we're going to create our actual routes. All right, so we're going to do route get, oops, not get, dot get, but just get, route get. And then very basically, we're going to just do slash. So the slash says this is just going to be when you come to this route, this is what you should see. All right. Now that usually you're going to do that with something like a prefix. So for this, we're actually going to do budget categories. All right. So budget categories, if we hit this endpoint, we'll get to the route. All right. In fact, we can actually test that here in just a second. So then we're going to call the method. So this would be index. All right. So if we go back here, here's our controller. We've got our controller. We've passed that controller into the group. So now we can access the methods inside that controller. All right. So we're saying this is the path, and then this is the method that we want to instantiate or call when we hit this path. All right. So we come back over here. This is the method, and in here we just did return budget category all. All right. So let's save that, and let's try it out and see if it works. So here's the application running. And again, we're doing this in the browser because it's a get. You need Postman or something like that to be able to hit this if you're using like Post and things like that. Okay, so 404 not found. That's great. Budget categories. Oh, hang on. There we go. You have to have you have to have the API in there so it knows it's going to the API. Because again, remember we've got two kind of route files here. We've got a web route, and so that is what it was trying to hit. So for example, let's just add a route in here. All right, return. All right, we're just going to return some text here. So that's in the web route. So if I do this without the API, I get that information, right? I get the budget categories text. But I have to add the API in here to go to the route. And of course, I haven't seeded the database, I guess. So nothing's showing up. Let me check my database real fast and just make sure, because I thought we seeded it, but maybe it's not for some reason. Let's see if I can connect here. Ah, there is nothing in there. All right, let's see if we can run the seeder real fast. I'm going to move this over here. So you guys can see it too. All right, let's run the seeder and just see sale artisan DB seed. All right, let's see what happened. Did we get anything? Why is it not seeding? Does anybody remember? Did we have an issue with this before last time? It's been a while since we did this, so let's see. DB seeding the database. Did we not have the seeders? Here we got a budget category seeders. Is it in here? Ah, it's not in here. Ha ha ha. Here we go. Let's add it here to our database seeders. So we want, what is our class? Budget category seeder. You know what? We're just going to call it. Here we go. Sale artisan DB seed class equals budget category seeder. Now let's see. There we go. All right, so now we've got some items in our database. I just called the class directly because I didn't want to mess with typing it all out and putting it in the file. Okay, so now let's go over here and run our API call on the get. And now we have our list. All right, so I don't know if you guys probably can't see that. So here's our list of items from the database. All right, so now we're hitting the route. The route is calling the controller. Come back here. Route is calling the controller and the specific method on the controller, and that is then using our model and getting everything in there. All right. So let's say we wanted to do get a specific one, right? So let's do. Let's make another method here. So public function. What would we call this? Let's do category. I'm just doing this off the top of my head at the moment. I haven't really thought through this yet. All right, so we're going to pass in. There's lots of ways we can do this. We could do data binding, which would be my preference here. So I'm going to do this. Is that right? There we go. I'm getting mixed up with JavaScript and TypeScript. I've been in that a lot. Okay, so budget category. This does what's called binding. So when we pass in an ID, it'll automatically bind it. So we're just going to return budget category. I'm sorry, we're just going to return category. Because what Laravel will do is it will automatically try to find the budget category item based on the ID that we get from the route. All right, so we'll see how that looks. Again, this is kind of getting deeper into the weeds a little bit, but I want you to kind of see some of the functionality here because we're not going to build all this stuff out. Mostly because I don't want to. I want to be able to show you what we're doing. I don't have my Postman set up locally here, so so we're going to just pass that category in. All right. So now we need a route for that. So let's build it here. Route, and we're still using the same controller. So and this will be a get route. So budget categories slash, and here we're going to do ID. So we're going to pass in this variable called ID, and we're going to pass that to the category method. All right, stop. All right, and there's lots of other things you can do with routes, but we're just going to see if this works. All right, so we should be passing in the ID to the method, and that should auto bind and automatically look for a specific ID. So let's go back here and just look what IDs we have. We have ID 3. All right, so if I come over here and I pass in 3, it didn't work. Did we set up right? Budget categories ID. Hang on one second. I thought it was. Oh no, my bad. See, I'm getting mixed up. This is what happens when you have multiple languages in your head. You get mixed up from one thing and different frameworks. You get mixed up from one thing to the next. Okay, let's try it again. There we go. That's empty. Why is it empty? Why is that empty? We've got the category. We're making the call. Did we give it the wrong budget category? We know this works. Let's see. We got our route. Do we type everything the same way? Categories slash ID. That should be correct, I believe. Let me see here. I don't know why that's not working. Unless I need to pass. I may need to pass the model here. Hang on. A budget category. Category. Let's try that. I think that might be the issue. Nope. Ah, this is fun. Let's see. Let's see what the error tells us. Budget category. Maybe we have to pass it into the get. What's the error? Type of budget category. Routing router given. It has a type of budget category. Well, let's look at the docs. Let's see, Laravel. Welcome to development in the real world. Now you guys know how bad of a developer I am. Okay, so let's go to routing. Let's see. I want binding, model binding. That's what I'm looking for. See, this is what I'm trying to do, but it's on the get. All right, let's try that. Let's take this guy. Do, do, do. I don't know if that works right. Let's see. What else is there? We don't need to do that because it's inside a controller group already. Let's see. Get, here's a group. Get function. Blah, 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 blah. It looks like it wants it on the get route. But I don't know how you do that inside a Google Laravel model binding in controller group. Oops, I didn't want a new thing, but oh well. Let's see if we've got anything here. Nope, not helpful. Not helpful at all. Okay, let's see here. This is what I do all day long when writing code. All right, so route get. This is all get. We've got. Why is this not? All right, give me 1 second, because I know I've got other code that we're doing this on. Let's see. Okay. Sorry, 1 second here. New window. Move this away because I don't want you to see what I'm looking at. Let's see here. So sometimes you have to go find stuff that you've written in the past because you can't find the right documentation in the present. So let me look at an old thing here. Yeah, this should just be working because we're passing it in. Why is it not working? So this should just work like this. Well, let's put show back just for fun. Let's see. Rename this. Sorry, 1 second. That is so weird. I don't know why. Don't know why it's not sending it. Maybe it's because we're not sending a response type, but that should just work. Let's try it with that route and just see. We're getting an empty result. I'll have to figure that out. Maybe I'll do a video on that, figuring that out. I don't want to take a bunch of time today trying to troubleshoot that. But that should work. So we've got a show, budget category, doing this. Well, let's just try this. Let's just do this. Let's go category and we'll assume that's an ID. Let's try budget. Let's do. Well, hang on. Did I use? Okay. All right. All right. All right. Let's try it now. Okay. There we go. So sometimes you're just dumb. Um, in order for the model binding to work correctly, you actually have to use the same name for your variable over here. I was using category over here, but here I was using ID because I'm an idiot. All right, so category that allows all the binding to work the way that it should. I hope that was fun for you guys. I know you guys just love sitting there watching me struggle, I'm sure. I don't know if anybody saw the. I wasn't looking at the at the chat. I don't know if anybody saw that and was able to figure it out. Right? Category as a string and not the ID. No, it is going to accept it as an ID. But yeah, that's the issue. Yeah, hopefully this makes you guys feel really good about yourself, knowing that I've made it as far as I have in my career, and I still miss stupid stuff like that. So excellent. All right, now it's working. Good times. And we can pretty print that. So now we've got that. We can come back here and look at our budget categories, all of them. That's nice. Okay, so we can do that. So that's data model binding in there. So Laravel, if you type it correctly, Laravel will kind of automatically take care of that binding for you. Now we could go through and store new things like that. I don't have Postman set up to be able to do that. I will probably try to make a video on doing these with Postman so that you can see how to do that. Have any of you used Postman or something like Postman in the past? That'd be interesting to see, because I know a lot of you haven't really done a lot with back-end development. So all of this is very new to a lot of you. So I probably should HTTP. Okay. So I'll probably use Postman. There's other things out there. I might do something else. Postman's what I've used the most in the past, but I know there's some other things. Maybe there's something that's a little bit more accessible. I'll do some research and then see if anybody has any suggestions. Let me know if you use something that might be a little bit easier. I know HTTP. I'll look at that one too. I haven't used that one myself. All right, so that is the flow for our API calls, right? So we've got our API. We're going to API/route, and then either just listing all or passing it an ID, and that gives us the information that we're looking for. And we would use these routes for all of our CRUD, right? So we would go back here and we could build out more CRUD. So we could do route. Create would be post, right? We can do budget categories. Something that you can do and that I often do here is I will do something before group. I will do what's called a prefix. And this allows me to take like this piece here and move it up here so I don't have to type it every time. My formatter's not working. Okay, here we go. And so then here I could just do slash, and then everywhere else, I don't like the / on these. That would be / because there's nothing there. But this would be store. All right, so this should still work. And it does. Okay, so adding the prefix makes it so you don't have to retype that longer string every time. And also you can put these in multiple levels. Let's say you wanted budget categories and there was some other level underneath that. You could come in here and you could do route prefix group, you know, something like that. Something like that here. Or you just do like get. Just for fun, we'll call it the same thing. So what do we call that? Something. I don't know. I have to look it up. Anyway, but you can make it hierarchical. But this makes it easier. You just put it in there in one place at the beginning of your group. You've got your prefix, and it just works. So we've got our post is going to go something like this: route put, because usually you want to use a put when you're updating. So this would be also just the slash, and this would be for update, and then route complete. Oh, look at that. And then slash category, right? And then this is going to be boilerplate. Okay. And this would be destroy. All right. So that's our basic CRUD routes. And then those routes all coincide with these specific methods from our controller, which we've passed in to all of these, and we can use data binding here and data binding here if we spell it correctly. All right. So then in here, we would go through and we would add the code to be able to do this. For example, this is not going to be perfectly accurate and we're not testing it. So, but we might do something like this. So we do budget category, create, request. All right. And again, this is, you would typically do validations. You would do lots more stuff here, but this is just a very basic CRUD, right? So we're assuming that the request is passing in things in the organization, in the layout that we want it to be. That rarely ever happens. But again, you'll notice we're using the model. So we're using our budget category model, and then we're calling methods from that model. These are built-in methods that Laravel automatically adds to the model. If we go back and look at our budget category model, there's nothing here, right? There's none of these methods are inside this model, but it's extending the base model from Laravel, and that base model has all those methods, right? I don't know why it's not. Whatever. Okay. It's obviously there. Okay. So and that's in the package itself. So these are all just part of those things, right? So you can come back here and go to your model down in the Eloquent. Getting started, models, right? So that's generating model class. Here's the models. Does it have all the methods? Queries. Let's see. Does it list the models up here? It does not. Here we go. Here's some of them. Save if you're updating something. Okay, so here we go. Create. Updates use save. I think you can use update too. Here's update or create. This is a nice little thing where if you if it's not there, it will not it won't try to update it. It'll just create it. So there's lots and lots and lots of cool things you can do here with the models. We're just going very basic. I think I might have done that wrong. Oh, I haven't done anything. So save. Yeah, see, I don't see that. I think it's update. Yeah, update. Haha. See, I knew it was right. Okay, and then budget category. destroy. And this would be category, again, because we're using category in the other thing. And this would actually be budget. Budget category. So do the auto binding there, budget. So here we would just do actually category destroy. All right, so we're going to call the destroy method on the model that was passed in and auto bound from the router. All right. The typos that I ignored. What typo did I have? Where's my typo? I don't know what you're talking about, CW. Is it in here? Where is it at? Is it in here? Category, store, update, destroy, category. I think I fixed it already. I don't know. All right. So yeah, I tell people all the time, this is why I became a developer. I don't have to spell things correctly as long as I spell them the same way every time. Now, that doesn't necessarily help the next developer to spell things incorrectly, but it will still work. So there you go. All right. So that is the flow. So the call comes in, hits our API route. It's routed to our controller. Our controller then uses the model to interact with the database and return information. So something like this, we would just return true. Oh boy. Or we would return an actual like JSON response typically. I'm not going to get into that right now. We'll discuss that stuff later. Typically for these things, you would return these as JSON responses because it's coming from an API. But again, this is just really high level how the workflow works and the different pieces that you need to be able to do that. So I'm going to go through and find a good... Yeah, that's how I make AI worse, exactly. So I'm going to go through and do a video on Postman or something similar to show you how you can hit these endpoints and test them and see what they're returning. I might do something there about the return types so that we're returning stuff in JSON just so you can see how that works. But if you look at the documentation, I believe you'll see... let's go to routes. Come on. Let's see. Oh no, it'd be in controller. Sorry. Controllers. Okay. Basic controller. That's returning a view. Middleware. Resource controllers. Here we go. Okay. So these are all the resources. Come on. I think this automatically does it as JSON since you're using the model. So we don't necessarily have to put that in there. If you're returning the model or you're returning like a collection, I think it automatically does it as JSON if I remember correctly. But yeah, lots and lots of things that you can do with this. But I just wanted to show you the basics of setting that up here this morning. And then I will create a ticket for adding those CRUD pieces in here as we go for the other models. And again, we'll want to do those as API categories or API controllers or resource controllers. So make sure you put them in the API directory, and then these will be our web controllers here. So again, as you saw, we've got our web controllers here. We've got Dave still. Oh, what happened? Oh, we got rid of the route. The route doesn't exist, but the controller does. The controller method does. So if we just go to index, we'll see that welcome page. Whoa, there we go. Yeah, so questions on routing, controllers, and models. And again, this gets bigger and more complex as we go. Obviously, this is just the beginning for what we're going to be building. But this kind of hopefully gives you an idea of how that backend works, how CRUD works in the backend: create, read, update, and delete. Obviously, there's going to be other times that you're going to create other API endpoints for things. Maybe you want to have a different endpoint for searching, so that you can manage the search in a different method outside of the index method or something like that. So there's lots of different things you can do with controller, but that's the basic flow. And obviously, dependency wise, you need a model, and then you need a controller, and then you need a route. And that's generally how you get it all set up. And then you start building from there and start building out the routes that you need for the application. Obviously, we're going to need CRUD routes for most things. Pretty much for everything. We'll need a CRUD route, I think. So all of those items, and again, we're using get, post, put, and delete as our main CRUD methods. So, all right, let's see if I missed anything else. Mel says it's weird how good it feels to spend time writing code for it to do exactly the same thing it did hours ago. That's so true. Sometimes success is just getting back to where you were hours before, and things are starting to work again. That's funny. Yeah, absolutely, Mel. It'll definitely make more sense as you start using it. Trying to understand the concepts first. Understand how the data flows, how the request comes in, and how the response goes out, right? So understanding that process will help you understand the things that you need to do in that process. So if I'm wanting to get information, I need to hit a get route in the backend, and that route has to contact a controller. Now, technically, we could put code in our route, right? We could just return. So like, just for fun, let's do this. So we could come in here. I think it looks like this. And I could do budget category. Man. Nope, budget category. Oh. Let's try that. Import that. We got the model. Good. Okay. So let's see if our route still works here. API, budget categories. And it does, right? So we can actually write the code in the API route if we absolutely wanted to. But this is not as clean. It would get really, really big over time. So it's good to section things out. It's much cleaner to have a controller that manages all the different methods, because then again, you just have this in your route, right? This is a whole lot easier to look at and to understand without all the extra code inside there, right? So you've just got, okay, I'm in the budget category, app API controller, I'm hitting these methods, right? And those methods, this one and this one. Those methods are coming from the budget category API controller. All right, and inside that controller, I know I'm going to interact with the database. And again, this looks really simple. It's never this simple, but there you go. So that's how the flow works. Understand the flow. Once you understand the flow and the concepts, you can start adding code to do the things that you want to do over time. Oh shoot, sorry guys. I forgot that I had switched. So let me go back. I'll show you. Rewind. All right. So in the API controller, you could do something like this. So this is where our method is. We could just do this. And do function. And in here, we could just do budget category all like that. So the get slash is now running code instead of going and getting a specific method, right? So it's running the code inside here, and then we can hit it. Oh, hang on. We have to return it. I ended it. Sorry, hang on. Import. Up there. Now we go. Okay, now it works. So helps to redo all the things that you did. Okay, so you could write all that code in here if you wanted to. Not great, but you could. So that's the thing here. We need to keep it as clean as possible. So as you're writing your routes, try to keep them as clean as you can. Use the category controller. There are other ways to do this too. Like you can pass in route. I think it's just route get. Budget categories slash our budget categories, and then you could do something like this where you pass in the controller and the method. Then we could get rid of this route. All right, so this is another way of writing. Again, there's lots of ways of writing your routes depending on how you want to organize them. This is just doing it a specific route right away. Let's see if it still works. Nope, what did I miss? Get method announcement API budget categories. Oh, dupe. Have to have a hyphen, and now it works again, right? So you can write your routes lots of different ways. Again, I like to group them by the controller, and I would prefer that we do it this way in the future here. So let's put this back. Bloop. Bloop. Index. Bada bing. All right, so this is nice and clean. It allows us to know where things are coming from, but not make this really dirty. All right. Yep, absolutely. Meaning the route calls the controller, and the controller calls the model, and the model interacts with the database. All right. So route, controller, model, database. All right, and eventually we'll have views as well. That controllers will call views in the future when we look at our web. So instead of calling the view here in the API or in the route, we would call the controller, which would return the view based on any information that we passed in. So, but we'll get there probably next week or the week after. All right, let's see. Yeah, I do have my headphones in. We might could try pinging me in Discord. That might be an option. I don't know. You might try that next time. Next time I forget to switch screens. Let's see. Questions. Ali says, do we have to specify the relation between models in the class, such as budget category belongs to budget and so on? Yes, that you do in order to build those relationships. So if you want to pull them, especially if you want to be able to pull them at the same time. Now, your migration already has that built in if you built your migrations correctly. But typically, if you want to like access those, so for example, let's say we wanted to do something like, I don't know where I want to put this. well, we'll put it in the model. Let's say this is the code that you're wanting to write. You're wanting to do budget let's see, you want to get the categories. Sorry, budget categories equals budget budget categories. Right? So if you want to get the budget categories from the budget model, you would have to add that relationship to the budget model. Usually you would do that in a two-way binding. You'd put a has on the budget, and you'd have a belongs to on the budget category. You can look at the documentation for relationships, but basically it's going to look something like this: function budgets. This would be plural because budget categories can be attached to multiples. So, and in this case, we would be using a pivot table, I believe. Oh, no, one. No, it's just one. So it belongs to many. So it'd be belongs to many. Oh, I hate it when that happens. Yeah. There we go. So we do belongs to many, and then we would do return this belongs to many budget. And it will automatically use the binding that we have in the migration, and it will get all the budgets that belong to or that have this budget category, so that this category belongs to, right? So this would return all the budgets for this specific category if we wanted to look that up for some reason. Doggone it. Here we go. So this is what I was typing that whole time. So budgets belongs to many inside of our budget category. So belongs to many, and then return this belongs to many budget class. And this auto binds based on your migration, right? So if we go back here and we look at our migrations, we don't have a budget migration. Let's look over here. Let's look at some PRs. And files. Let's look at the budget here. Got this stupid fly. It's just driving me crazy. All right, create budgets. So, oh, we need budget. Budget line items. That's what it belongs to. It doesn't belong to a budget. It belongs to a budget line item. So let me go back here and change this. All right, so this would be budget, not budget, budget line item class. All right, so budget line items. All right, so we'd actually be connecting the categories to line items, not to budgets themselves. So budget line items. So then if we wanted to get the budget line items that this category is attached to, then in another place we would do budget category budget line items, like that. All right. So we would be able to access the budget line items, that relationship, by putting it here on this. And we would go in the line items model, we would do the opposite here. So we do budget category. Well, here we wouldn't, because it would just be we could do it anyway. Budget category. you could do something like has one. Doggone it, that's so annoying. We'll just do this. Take advantage of it. Okay. So then here we would do budget, category, class. We don't need this. If you needed to specify the specific foreign key, local key relationship, then you could do that here. But it will auto bind if you're using the inferred setup for your migrations, then it'll just use that and automatically find it. So what's it complaining about? This has one budget category class. Oh, it's because it's the same thing. That's why it's complaining about. But this is what you would put then in your budget line item model. And so that way you've got two-way binding. You'd be able to pull that information. That's how you do relationships. But if you go to the database, or if you go to the documentation here, you can go to relationships in Eloquent, and that will tell you how to define those on your model, right? So that's how you can pull that information. Let's see. What happens if you specify the wrong thing? For example, one-to-many when it should be one-to-one. Sometimes it just works. Sometimes it won't work. A lot of times it'll work even if you do it wrong, because it'll still see that there's a binding there in the database. But if you try to go, like, it'll work one way, but it won't work the other way. Especially if you have pivot tables, you have to define the pivot tables. So if you try to use like many-to-many relationship, but you don't have the pivot table set up for that, it won't know what to do and it'll error out. But oftentimes, even if you do it, if you use the wrong thing, if you've got the right database structure, it'll kind of figure it out. But obviously you want to try to set it up correctly if you can. But sometimes it'll just work right because it'll take pity on us and figure it out for us. All right. Any other questions? I'm gonna do the fateful thing and transition back to me. Hopefully that makes sense. Hopefully, even struggling through this and finding issues, it'll make sense to you, even if you have to watch this again. Or again, get used to looking things up in the documentation. Obviously, part of using documentation is knowing what to look for, so there's some learning curve with that. But the more you learn to lean on the documentation, the better you will get at finding what you need, and the less you'll need somebody to come in here and do a tutorial for you, right? So, but I wanted to walk you through that process so that you could do the tickets. I'll create the ticket sometime here in the next day or two, hopefully today if I have time. But you want to make sure that you're relying on the documentation as much as you can to help you do the things that you need to do. Again, remembering to try to understand the concepts so that you can use the documentation. No, because a budget actually belongs to a line item, Ali. Budget category means budget categories. Maybe that's the wrong term then. We probably didn't think that through very well. So a budget category is really a line item category. So maybe we need to rename that to make more sense. But when I think of a budget, I think of categories inside the budget. But those budget categories really are organization pieces for the line items. So all of our housing line items would go under housing. All of our automobile line items. All of our entertainment line items would go under the entertainment category. So maybe it's probably better to be a line item category. Maybe that's we should do a migration to update that once we've got the migrations in. So that might be something that we do. When's the third ticket due? We've not even finished the second ticket. Should we do them both at the same time? No, we'll do them separately. I'd like to get some people pushing in the second ticket first. So I might hold off on the third ticket until I get some PRs for the second ticket. So if you would, and I'll post this in the Discord channel, but if you would work on the second ticket first, get that set up and pushed in, I will get a PR pushed into the to the main branch so that you can just branch off of main for that. But yeah, I'd rather you not do them in the same PR if possible. So I'll wait to put the ticket up maybe till Monday so that people have time to kind of play around with it or just do separate PRs for yourself. So yeah, the third ticket technically would be due next Saturday. Again, eventually, if we need to, I'll push code in just so we can get to where we need to be. But I'm sure somebody's going to work on different pieces of this and things like that. So hopefully we'll get that in over the next week or so and get that stuff PR reviewed for next week. And then I get that pushed in and merged into the application into the main branch. So that's the plan. So try not, don't work both of them in the same PR. Work them as separate tickets if you're still working on the second one. All right. Any other questions on the project? So as far as ChatGPT is concerned, I do not recommend that junior devs use ChatGPT or CodePilot or things like that. Not because they're not helpful, but because in order to make the best use of them, you need to understand what they're writing. You need to understand. You need to have experience to be able to know if it's good code or if it's junky code. Because I've had Copilot write really good code and I've had it write really bad code. And if you don't know, then you're going to end up with an application that's not going to have good code in it. Relying on AI when you are starting out is a bad idea. You need to be able to understand the code that you're writing. You need to be able to explain why you wrote the code that you're writing the way that you wrote it, what your thought process was. And most junior devs especially just don't have the experience yet to do that. Can they read code? Sure. But that doesn't mean that they know if that code is the most efficient, if it's the best way of doing something, especially when you're learning a new framework like Laravel. It's really tempting to have ChatGPT or Copilot write the code out for you. If you're sneaky about it, I may not know. But at the end of the day, I would prefer that junior devs not use it just because it's going, in my opinion, it's going to stunt your growth as a developer. Part of growing as a developer is struggling. And I know that doesn't sound fun, but that's the reality. You learn more through the struggle than you do through the success, right? So failure is not an option. Failure is required. You need to be failing as a junior dev in order to gain experience. Because really, when we talk about experience, it's not necessarily experience in building lots of different apps. The experience is in the struggle that you've been through. So the more you can tell me about the struggle and things that you've learned, and like even today, the issues, the bugs that you ran into, and how you overcame them, and things like that. Like that to me is the experience that moves you forward, that progresses you as a developer. And so that's what's going to take you from learning code to launching a successful career. At the end of the day, it's experience. And if you are leaning heavily on automated code generation, that is not giving you that experience. It may be giving you success, but it's not giving you experience. And so I really highly recommend, I know it's tempting, and I know that there's probably people telling you to do it to build things faster, especially if you do have a job. You might be encouraged to use it. but I recommend that only senior level devs, maybe mid level devs, but generally senior level devs should be the ones using Copilot, um, or Chat GPT, because they have the experience to look at the code and understand if it's good code or bad code, if they're not being lazy. So that's the big thing that I would say. I would not recommend you do it. I'd ask that you wouldn't do it. If you do it and I catch you, I'll just call you out. But try not to do that. Try to learn it on your own. The learning and the struggle is what's going to make you a better developer at the end of the day. So let's see. Yeah, exactly. CW. ChatGPT can make the code more complicated with its mistakes. Yeah. So if you don't catch them, you could run into a month down the line and you've got bad code that now is messing things up in your application. So you definitely don't want to lean on that as your main developer of your code. Let's see. Mill says, "Is there a deadline for the project?" No, we don't have a deadline. It would be nice to get it mostly done by the end of the year. I don't know how reasonable that is. Once we start giving tickets out to individuals, that will make it easier to tell what it's going to look like time wise. Um, but I want us to take as long as it takes and not feel the pressure of a deadline. Obviously, in a real working environment, you're going to have deadlines, but I don't want you to feel that pressure. I just want you to experience working on a real project with a team, and with somebody who's actually leading it, with somebody who's interacting with you, with somebody who's doing PR reviews, things like that. That's really my goal. I'm less worried about getting it done in a specific time frame. Obviously, I'm looking forward to being able to use it myself. But along the way, we're gonna introduce changes. We're gonna introduce problems from a client perspective, and so I want to make sure that you guys experience those things without feeling like we're really far behind, right? So we're not looking to do this in a specific time frame. If I had to give it a time frame, I'd say it'd be great to be done by the end of the year. But since we only meet once a week on this, you guys are doing all of this outside of the weekly meeting for the most part. I want to make sure um, that we're not adding an extra level of stress that would cause people to not participate. Because at the end of the day, I want people to participate in this project. And if we add a deadline, I think that's going to put another level of stress on people. That's just going to make them be like, well, I can't do it. And they'll back out. I want you to try and be a part of this as much as you can be and not feel like you're not keeping up, right? Because you can always do it on your own on the side and just watch the live streams or things like that. I don't want to add another level of stress to this, because many of you already have plenty of stress as it is, just learning and growing your skill set, right? So that's the goal. Mel says, you think we'll need this app working around Christmas so we can use the app to stop ourselves overspending. Absolutely. That's a pretty good reason to have the app for sure. Let's see. Yeah, that's true. There are a lot of senior devs that are not using AI anymore because it's making them dumber. I mean, that's the reality. AI is really helpful for some things, but it's not a perfect fix. And the reality is, in my opinion, I don't think AI is ever going to be able to actually write a full application. I think it'll get better at writing better code, but there's kind of a dirty little secret um, around AI and code writing, and that is that it has to be trained on human code writing. So AI code writing is only as good as the human code writing that's being used to train it. Um, in fact, check this out. There are actually jobs to write code to train AI. This is scary right here. Entry level remote work. I don't want an entry level person training AI on code. That's a bad idea. And this might be why there's so many bad AI code out there. Um, Mel says I considered getting one of those jobs last year. Yeah, 100 plus coding AI trained jobs. Like this is $25 to $47 an hour. AI code training jobs. I mean, just this is see. This is the thing. This is the thing you have to remember with AI. AI has to be trained. I made a video about this a long time ago called "AI is a puppy," I think, or something like that. And just like a puppy, it has to be trained. You have to teach it to do the things that you want it to do. In fact, if I remember correctly, every time somebody has come out with this really cool thing that AI does, it generally gets found out to be false or staged. Um, Now, AI does a lot of cool things, but when they start talking about it replacing developers and things like that, and they start showing you the stuff it can do, most of the time that stuff gets found out to be false or to get to or very specified for like the video that they're doing or something like that, right? Because AI has to be trained. Um, and that's the difficult part. Now, you can use different models for lots of different things, but even then you've got to train it based off of your specific use case a lot of times and tweak it. So that I mean, this is the dirty secret behind AI code, and that is you've got people who are writing the code for the AI to be trained on. And again, you think about this. So like Copilot is from GitHub, right? So you've got Copilot, and what did Copilot get trained on? Well, it got trained on GitHub repositories, right? So if it got trained on GitHub repositories, then that means it got trained on a bunch of code written by a lot of people who may or may not have written good code. So why would you trust AI when the code that it generates is based off of code written by other developers? Like that'd be like just assuming every piece of code your senior developer writes is good and just copy pasting it. Hopefully it's good, but that doesn't mean they're perfect. That doesn't mean that what they wrote applies to what you're trying to do. So if you think about it in those terms, AI is no more perfect than the people training it. And the more you dig into the AI world, the more you see that is very much a reality. So there you go. Let's see. CW, $25 an hour for future unemployment. No thanks. That's awesome. Uh, yeah, but again, so there's always going to be a limit to AI and what it can produce from a code standpoint. Um, if you just think about all the things that you have to consider, even with our small budget project, right? Even let's just do a small to do application. Now, I'm sure somebody's probably put a to do application into Copilot or something like that, and so it could probably crank out the code for that because somebody's written it. But let's say you're building a new to do application and you want it to do something different than normal to do applications do. And in order to do that, you've got to think through how relationships work. You've got to think through the UI. You've got to think through how the user is going to use this. AI will never be able to think through all those things. It will never be able to think as a human using it. And so that's why AI will never develop its own application completely. That's why you can use AI builders, but you still have to tell the AI what to build. You have to tell it all kinds of information just to get it anywhere close to what you need. And that's the way it's always going to be. Because at the end of the day, again, artificial intelligence is just a computer running code. That's all it is. It's just doing it really fast and in a way that's been trained to be able to do certain tasks quickly. So that's the difference. It's basically like having a junior developer who can type really, really fast, um, and process information really, really fast. So that's why I just don't fear AI. It's going to be helpful for certain things, and yes, it might make senior level devs jobs easier, but we're still going to need junior level developers, and companies that don't understand that are going to be in a world of hurt when they need more developers because us old guys are moving on, and there's fewer people learning to write code because everybody assumed we don't need junior developers anymore because we've got AI. So that's hopefully that swing will come back quickly. But yeah, that's why I don't worry about AI because at the end of the day, no matter how good it gets, you will always need a programmer to be able to talk to it. All right. So you might be able to get away in some instances with somebody who's just like a project manager, um, to think through a lot of it, but a programmer has to understand how code works to be able to make sure that the AI is writing what is necessary to do, what needs to be done, or if it's not, to be able to tell it what it needs to change. So even if AI starts writing awesome applications, in order to instruct it on what to do, you're gonna need real programmers who could do it themselves to be able to give the instructions and to evaluate if it's working properly, if it's generating code properly. You're still going to need developers. You're still going to need real programmers. And so, um, I don't, could it be fewer? Sure. But my guess is the more things AI develops, the more programmers we're going to need to actually double check it and interact with it. So that's why I just don't fear artificial intelligence. I think it's going to create more jobs long term than it will kill jobs. Will it kill some jobs? Maybe. Um, but I think long term, it's going to create more jobs. It's going to create need for more people that understand what it's cranking out, um, than we currently have. So I think it's actually going to create more of a need, and that's why even if you're not able to get a job right now, I mean, there's nothing wrong with looking at AI, understanding AI, and how it works and how it uses information and and what it generates. Um, that's why I have hope for you junior devs, because again, you need to be able to understand and read what AI is putting out so that you can correct it. Even if that becomes the job where you're not actually writing code anymore, but the job is talking to AI all day long and telling it what to fix and what to change, you still got to know it, right? So you've got to learn how to write code. You've got to learn how to read documentation, all that stuff. I don't think that's going away anytime soon. Um, so I'm just not worried about it. Let's see. Maybe this is why AI is getting worse. Yeah. Uh, Mel says a sad thought is that many senior devs are out of work right now and need to feed their families. They might start training the AI that will take their jobs. Yeah, maybe. I think there's a lot of other factors that are involved in the layoffs. A lot of it's the economy, honestly, um, and a lot of it's greed by companies and shareholders and things like that. Um, Unfortunately, that's just a reality, especially with those companies that are laying off hundreds and thousands of people. Um, yeah, I don't think it's AI that's causing that. I think it might be companies thinking they're going to be able to rely on AI, but they're going to find out pretty quick that was a mistake. Uh, the COBOL devs are getting old. Very few junior devs willing to replace them. Yeah, in fact, I have a friend who works at a company that has COBOL, and they pretty much just put like this Java wrapper around the COBOL uh, calls so that they don't have to mess with the COBOL. It's interesting. Let's see. Oh, thanks for making me feel old, CW. Someone born in 1974 is already 50 years old this year. Yep. Yep. I'm 43 tomorrow, so that's going to be. Time just keeps ticking by. Better get in soon before the mentor actually retires. Yeah, absolutely. You need those old guys to tell you how it works. Or you just have to learn it on your own, one of the two. That's funny. All right. Well, obviously we went long as usual with the information on the development side. Any other questions, either related to the project or outside the project, that you guys might have before we shut it down for the day? Let's see if anybody comes up with anything. Like I said, I will add the ticket probably Monday-ish, somewhere around there. I've got some stuff that I need to take care of today for work, so that'll probably keep me busy. But and then Sunday is always busy for me, obviously. But yeah, so if you want to work on the ticket number 2 and ticket number 3 once it comes available, and then we'll do some PR reviews next week if we have any up. If not, we might jump into some front end stuff. So we're getting really close to adding the React part in here and things like that. So lots of work ahead of us, lots of things to do, and then we're going to be handing out tickets. So I will put a post in the Discord channel. Actually, I'm going to do it right now while we're talking about it. So I'm going to go to the DeepPockets project section and the DeepPockets code channel. And I'll do @everyone. If I can type everyone. Respond here if you would like to receive individual tickets for the project in the future as we move forward with development and stop community tickets. All right. So there's that, and I will pin it. Oh yeah, pin it. All right. So that is in the channel. So if you respond to that and let me know if you want to get individual tickets when we get to that point, that would be awesome. Yeah, I didn't get an audio. I will have to look at this because I see you. I think that's Mel, right? Did you ping me in the Discord? But I didn't hear any sound, so I'll have to figure that out. Or I could just do better at live streaming. That would be helpful too, right? David, if you would just do better at live streaming, we don't have to worry about all this stuff. Or what I need is AI to listen to what I'm saying and automatically switch it. See, that's a good use for AI right there. Somebody wants to build that out for OBS, that would be nice. Okay, so I've got that in there. So Mel, perfect. You're gonna get tickets. So if you want tickets, respond to that in the Discord channel. If you're not in the Discord channel, why are you not in the Discord channel? If you're on here in the live stream and you're interacting, you should be in the Discord channel, in the Discord server. So join us over there. AI, we'll press a button for you. Exactly. That's all I need. See, I just need it to do specific things. I don't need it to think for me. I need it to do, well, I guess that is kind of thinking for me, isn't it? I need it to automate certain tasks. That's what I need. Yeah, that is true. I've actually thought about that, CW, getting my one of my kids involved here or just getting somebody else. We don't have a big enough following or participation group yet to warrant it, I think, for the most part, except for when I mess up. But right now I'm mostly able to keep track of the chat if I look at it. Um, but to your point, maybe that is a good idea, um, especially if I'm going to do more screen sharing in the days ahead. So that might be a good idea. I don't know if I want to bore my children for 2 hours on a Saturday morning, but it might be a good idea to do that. But eventually, if the channel grows and we get more people on the live streams, um, we might need to get some moderators that would probably have another way of contacting me more directly, like through text or something like that, or through some other group chat that I would have visible for pinging. Um, but yeah, that is interesting. I wonder, is my sound just not turned on? Let's check here. Is there a way to get timestamps moderation participants community? My sound is working, so yeah, I don't think there's a way to do that, to get a sound. That would be nice though. I'm sure there's reasons why they don't want to want to do that, just because most live streams don't want to hear that sound probably, and especially live streams that are bigger than ours that have lots of people. They probably have somebody monitoring it anyway. So, yeah, I'll take a look at that and see what might be some good ideas moving forward. I think a lot of it's just me paying a little bit closer attention to what I'm doing in the live stream. But yeah, maybe the sound. I should be able to get a sound from Discord though. So I don't know why that's not pinging me. Because I should have heard something there when Mel hit me up. So I don't know. We'll see. Let's see. I thought I saw something else here. Mel said, with Cedar, should we be creating the files in an order? Yes. So when you think about dependencies. So what Cedars are going to depend on other Cedars already being in place. So, well, I'm sorry. No, I'm thinking migrations. Cedars do not. The only reason you would need an order for Cedars is when you're using factories. If you remember, factories are a way of creating multiple of an item, multiple of a model, quickly instead of doing them as an array. So here we go. Transition. Boom. Okay. So if we come back over here to our Cedar for budget categories, you're going to notice that we did this as a for each loop. There's another way of doing this, and that is to use factories, right? So let's say we wanted to make line items and we wanted to use a factory. Well, we could tell the factory that the category should be random, a random selection from the budget categories that are in the database, right? So in that case, you would have to run the Cedar for budget categories first. I would typically do that anyway, just to make sure that anybody in the future who is writing a Cedar can just do that. So I would still do that in terms of potential dependencies. So you may not have a specific dependency in your Cedars, but in order for somebody else in the future to be able to use that, I would typically do it probably in the order that I did my migrations. So we want our migrations to be in order based on dependencies, right? So the things that are being relied upon first so that the other things can be built. I would typically build out my Cedars if I needed one for a specific migration or for a specific model or resource. There's lots of different words for this. So if I needed a Cedar, I would typically build the Cedars out in the same order as the migrations. That just makes it easier, in my opinion, to not have to think about you know, the dependency structure. It's just already there as I'm building it out because of the way that the models or the migrations are already set up. So that that would be the preference. At the end of the day, it's not as big of a deal as migrations, but I think it makes sense to follow that process for the most part. All right. Any other questions before we shut her down this morning? It's about 5 past here. Don't want to cut anybody off, but I think for the most part everybody's good. We've got pretty good latency here, so I think everybody should be up to date on what's going on. All right, you too, CW. Happy birthday to you as well. Hopefully you enjoy it and have a good time with friends and or family tomorrow. I'm really not a big cake fan. I will eat cake. I'm not a big icing fan. I'm an okay cake fan. If it's good moist cake, there's a good word for your live stream, moist. If it's a good moist cake, I do like that, but I prefer to eat it without the icing, honestly. Um, I'm more of an ice cream guy. Like I prefer ice cream cakes if I'm gonna have a cake. But ice cream, like even going to other people's birthday parties and things like that, typically just get ice cream instead of cake. Um, but yeah, so I'm more on the ice cream side. I can't see. Here's the problem though, Mel. Monday, I'm going back on my dieting. I've been very bad all year so far, and we're halfway through the year now, and I need to make some changes because I've got a vacation coming up at the end of September, and I want to be less of a blob than I am at the moment. So Monday starts the diet, and so or at least the change in my lifestyle, and I think eating a lot of cake and pie probably would be detrimental to that process. So I'm not going to eat a bunch. I don't even know. I am not a big fan of parties and things like that for myself. Honestly, if somebody just tells me happy birthday, like that's good for me. I don't need a big get together. I don't need cake and ice cream. I don't. It just isn't a big deal to me. I don't need presents. you know, that's just not. I like for people to say happy birthday and recognize that it's my birthday. But other than that, I could go without everything else. Um, so I don't know what things my wife might have in store tomorrow. Hopefully not much, but we'll see. Oh, I eat ice cream. No, 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 no. No, ice cream ice cream is my favorite dessert, and I'll eat almost any kind of ice cream. So our anniversary was the 25th, and my wife went out. My wife and I went out for our anniversary Tuesday, and and that was dessert. Like I got ice cream for dessert, and she got something else, key lime pie, I think it was. Which I actually like key lime pie, but like my go-to dessert is ice cream. So yeah, definitely want the ice cream, CW. So yeah, Ming. So this is kind of my frustration with employers right now. Um, Ming's question is, what's the purpose of junior devs when they want the minimum mid level to hit the ground running? The purpose of junior devs is that you can't have mid level devs without junior devs. And this is the problem with the industry right now. And again, I think part of this is economic, part of this is philosophical. Um, Companies are not willing to look to the future. They want they are willing oftentimes to pay a premium to get what they need now. They're not often future thinking, forward thinking. Now, some companies just are built around the idea that they just don't like. That's just who they are. That's what they want to do. They want to run really lean, things like that. But especially when it comes to larger companies that have the budgets, that have the resources, they really need to be working towards their future and the future of the industry. Now, again, I have a video out that I put out a couple weeks ago kind of talking about this, but there is a danger right now as an employer in hiring a junior developer and helping them grow in their skill set, because and that danger really is still on the employer more than it is on the junior dev. um, because if an employer hires junior devs but they don't provide what they need to grow their career and they don't provide them a career advancement process, what typically happens is a junior dev gets a year or two experience in a real world working environment, and then the company either doesn't increase their pay, excuse me, doesn't move them up in the process, still sees them as a junior level developer. And junior devs are not always great at asking for those things, because it's nerve-wracking to ask for a raise. It's not fun because they can say no. And so a lot of devs, not just junior devs, but a lot of devs in general will, if the company doesn't automatically do that in a timely manner, they'll just jump ship. They'll find some other place. And so that happens a lot more with junior devs, because companies are not set up with good career progressions and plans. And so you see a lot of junior devs who hit that mid-level experience of 2 or 3 years, and they jump ship and they go to another company. And so that's one of the reasons why employers are reticent to hire junior level developers, because there is a stigma that they won't stick around very long. And some junior devs meet that stigma, and some of them don't, and some of them want to stay at the company, but the company doesn't provide what is necessary to move them along in their career. And so again, I think most of that is on the employer more than it is on the developer. Some of it might be on the developer. Developers need to be more vocal about asking for what they desire or need. But a lot of that's on the employers for not providing it, whether that's done on purpose or whether that's done just out of not knowing how to manage junior developers. So there's a lot that goes on there in that process, but that's one of the reasons why you have all these entry-level positions that require more than entry-level positions should require. It's because most of the companies hiring don't have a plan for junior developers, or they just don't know how to manage them. And so they're looking for unicorns. They're looking for junior devs that have a lot more experience than a junior dev should. Yep. That's exactly right, CW. You don't get trees without planting seeds. And that's my concern for the industry as a whole, right? And this is the drum that I'm banging, probably not as loudly as I should or as often as I should, but the drum that I'm banging is that companies are destroying the future of the industry as well as their own future as companies by not having a process for bringing junior developers into the industry, into their companies, and growing them. It's kind of like to use a football analogy. You can go out and get a quarterback who is a veteran over and over and over again, but I think I saw a stat the other day that the vast majority of Super Bowl winners were won Super Bowls on their rookie contracts. Not necessarily the rookie year, but on their rookie contract, which is typically a 4 or 5 year contract, right? So, and I have to go look that up to make sure I'm accurate. But if I remember correctly, I think I might have just heard this on the radio. If I remember correctly, the majority of Super Bowl winners won the Super Bowl within the confines of, at least the first time, within the confines of their rookie contract. Now, obviously, there are some teams that won with veteran quarterbacks that they brought in. I think of Peyton Manning with the Broncos for one. So it does happen, but that's rare. You got Drew Brees with the Saints, right? So it happens, but more often than not, it's teams that have drafted a rookie and developed that rookie into a Super Bowl winner. Now, that rookie had talents and things like that, but that development process, that's what made them a Super Bowl contender specifically at that quarterback position, which is the most important position in the team. And developers are exactly the same way. You can go out and buy developers who have a lot of experience, but it's going to cost you a lot. It's gonna mess with your cap, your cap space, to be able to hire other developers. When if you spent the same amount of money, you could often hire 1.5 or 2 junior developers and develop them and give them a career path and help the company grow with 2 people that are able to do more work eventually after a year or 2 years than that one person could do on its own. And companies just don't think in those terms. They think most often in the here and now, and part of that's because of the stock market and because of stockholders, shareholders, things like that, are greedy. They want stocks to succeed and grow, which means company has to show profits. And yeah, there's lots of things that are involved in that process. But at the end of the day, you're right, CW, that if you don't plant the seeds, you're not going to get a tree. And we're going to have a really depleted forest in the coming years because, or a sickly forest, right? So we're just using all kinds of analogies this morning. But you're going to have either a depleted forest where you just have very few developers that are there and ready, or you're going to have a sickly forest where you've got maybe a lot of trees, but they don't really have all the sustenance that they need. They don't really have the strength that they need to withstand a fire or withstand a monsoon or something like that. I don't know, a tornado. I don't know, high winds, whatever it looks like. I'm running out of analogy here, but the companies that are not investing in the future, and they're not investing in junior developers, it's going to hurt them in the long run. They're going to have to, bring trees in from other places or something like that, or they're going to overwork the people that they currently have. They're going to try to get more work out of their senior level developers than is really beneficial. So, and then they'll leave. Eventually, they'll get tired and they'll leave, and then the company's in a lot of trouble. So. Ming says testing is essential, but should it be expected at the junior level? All my projects don't have it. Do you think that's a red flag when hiring a junior? I think testing is something that you should learn as a junior level developer. Here's the reality. Despite how many people talk about test-driven development, in my experience, the number of companies actually using it is very small. Mostly because companies don't want to pay for the time that it takes to build the tests, especially if they have a QA department. They put a lot on the QA department to test things themselves. But tests are not just for QA. Tests are not just to make QA's life easier. Tests really, if you write them well, are there to help us as developers protect ourselves and to catch things that we would not catch otherwise. I can't tell you how many times I've worked in a code base and I changed something and I either didn't know the code base well enough or I just forgot about how this was being used in another place and it broke other functionality, and I didn't think to test that and we didn't have any automated tests for it. And so it broke. It goes to production, or not production, thankfully. It usually went to QA, but it goes to QA, and QA may not test that other piece either. So it might get to production, and all of a sudden we've got this on a staging server or on a production server, and somebody else, some user is using it, and this other piece of functionality is broken. But if you write tests, even just high level tests, then you can catch that stuff right away when you're making commits. So it's a two-edged sword. It costs time, which is money, but it can save you, depending on how you use it, in the long term. So I would, for me, a junior developer not having testing experience is not a deal breaker. I would want them to learn it on the job, though. I would want them to get used to writing tests. And that's something that we're going to talk about here on our project. But future preview, future coming attraction. So I think testing is important to some degree. I don't think you need to test every little thing. But I think having an idea of how tests work, and a lot of them work very generally the same way. It's just different syntax. But I think having some experience in that would be beneficial. In my opinion, a junior shouldn't necessarily be required to have that. In my opinion, a junior level developer is doing good just to be able to write code that makes sense and runs. If that makes sense. I want juniors to be able to understand the code that they're writing and understand how to learn more code. And that includes testing. So for me, not having testing would not be a deal breaker, but I would want them to learn it at some point. So that's my 2 cents. Obviously, lots of other people are going to disagree on different aspects of that, and that's fine. But if I were hiring junior devs, that would be my philosophy. Partially because I'd want to teach the the junior dev the way that we do the tests. So that's another reason why it wouldn't matter too much to me as well. So, all right, guys, it's 20 past. I've been talking for a long time. My voice is starting to go. So thanks for jumping on with me. Hopefully my struggle made you feel better about yourselves on the live stream. This is two live streams in the last 3 where I've shown you how bad of a developer I am. Or at least the things that I don't remember off the top of my head. So hopefully it was still beneficial in understanding that process from routes to controllers to models, and then the response back through that and seeing that in the browser. I will try to get something up in the next few days regarding testing the other API endpoints such as put, post, and delete, just so you guys can see how to test that yourselves and understand, so you can actually write the code and test it and see how it works. I will also create the ticket for this as probably one of the last community tickets that we'll do. Moving forward, we're probably going to do many more individual tickets. So don't forget to respond in the Discord channel to let me know if you want individual tickets to participate in that process. So have a great weekend. I will see you all next Saturday, I believe. Let me just double check and make sure. I don't think I have anything going on that would prevent it. It is a holiday weekend, but yeah, we don't have anything there. So I will be here next Saturday at 10 a.m. Central United States time. Hopefully you guys will be able to join me as well. But yeah, hope you all have a good weekend, and I will see you all later.